Using my parking space? All good, you will be using it forever, by user Setame Jet. So I'm living in Japan now and here people ride bicycles a lot. You can't leave your bike anywhere and you have to pay for parking, between $1 and $2 per day. There are very few free parking areas for bicycles. Most people leave their bikes at the same place so they pay monthly because it's cheaper and you have your own space. This started a couple of weeks ago. Someone in my building started having a guest who decided to steal my bicycle parking space whenever they came to visit. Sometimes they stayed the whole night so I had to go to the station, pay $1 and come all the way home walking, which meant I would need to walk to the station the next day, getting up earlier, walk like 20 minutes to the station while carrying my heavy bag. All the bicycle spaces have a number, which means they are reserved for someone. Mine is the 105 but this F***er decided to take mine whenever they came to visit. The second time this happened, I told the building manager but they didn't do anything. The third time I saw the bicycle there, it was the same red expensive bicycle. I left a note in Japanese saying please don't leave your bicycle here, this is my space and I am using every day. I found the note taped, with the tape I used to tape it on their bike, to my parking space and it had a couple of bad words in Japanese at the end. Basically he was not only stealing my space but making fun of me by insulting me. Fine, it's just fine. I probably wouldn't have done anything about it if he hadn't written those words. This triggered me and got the worst in me. This person did it again a couple of times, so I knew this would continue. I was thinking about buying another bicycle, a better more expensive one I could use to go on cycling trips so a good chain/luck was needed anyway. I bought one of the thickest they had at the store and decided to try its efficiency. I locked his bicycle next time I saw it there. It hasn't moved for the last 7 days. There were 2 notes. The first one was a very aggressive one, with more bad words and threats about going to the police, which I don't care, let's go that way buddy. Second note days later was an apology and they begged for me to unlock the bike because they tried to break it but they couldn't. I guess he has learned his lesson. I'm pretty sure he won't do it again but I just want to enjoy this feeling of victory a couple of days more. I will free it in 2 to 3 days I guess. Edit, thank you very much for the awards, the support and all the comments. You guys are amazing. In order to keep my name out of any legal issues I changed parking lots. It is not as close as this one but I could come back in a month or 2, and I would be getting a new space so it would be okay. I left a tiny and very discreet note saying I will free his bicycle in exchange of $100. I wanted to ask for more but probably he wouldn't pay it. I wrote tape the bill under the seat. I will wait a couple of weeks, if he doesn't pay I will take it out at night, as far as possible from the place, steal his seat, cut the brakes and tires and all the other small pieces I can get or destroy. I can't steal the bike and dump her somewhere else because he locked it so I would need to carry it. The lock I got is the thickest and one of the most expensive in the bicycle shop. You can't cut it with normal tools because the thing is as thick as my finger. I'm pretty sure you need some kind of industrial tools to cut it. It would be easier to cut the parking device because the metal is thinner there. Cancel a land lease and hope to make a windfall? Hope you like a lot of dirt, by user KibyaFox. Let me preface this by noting that this revenge was not my doing. At least, not exactly. It happened back in the 90s when I was in high school, and centered around the type of school I attended. So, in case you weren't aware, it's very common in agricultural communities to have what are known as farmers' schools. That's not a technical term, but more just something easy to define them. The schools are generally organized by the local farmers, and while you still study the various courses needed to get into college, you also study farming technology courses, and get credit hours for work study, i.e. working on one or more farms. The area I lived in was surrounded by a number of large farms which grew cotton primarily. So during the year, we'd spend time out in the field both tilling, planting, and harvesting. One of the farms near the school, was this 1,000-acre spread that like the others grew mostly cotton, though sometimes they rotated to soybeans, or silage. Basically corn, but you don't harvest it. This farm had a long partnership with the school, so the students provided near free labor for the farmer. The farmer leased this property from some out-of-state owner, and paid them a portion of the revenue from the harvest. Imagine my surprise then, when I and many of my classmates arrived at the farm to do our work study, and the farmer instructed some to crew the sprayers and start spraying herbicide on the fields, while others, myself included, were to take tractors and discs and plow everything under. The farmer wanted every square inch of the fields returned to just dirt. We were shocked, to say the least, but after some discussion we set to work. It took us the better part of a weekend to do so, and when we were done the field was in a beautiful, if barren, state. The farmer thanked each of us personally, and paid us about $500 each. Quite the sum for a 90s high school senior. We returned to the school, told our headmaster that the contract was completed, and he informed us that the farmer would no longer be working with the school, and we'd be sent to one of the other larger farms for the rest of the year in our work-study. It was probably 2 or 3 months later before word started going around about why we'd been instructed to destroy the crop. Granted, these were just rumors, but based on how things turned out for the farmer, I suspect there's some truth to it. So, apparently the landowner had decided that he was going to not renew the lease the farmer had on the land. This lease renewal just so happened to fall a few weeks before harvest season would start. Given that the average cotton farm earns about $1,500 per acre, a 1,000-acre farm would easily net the owner $1.5 million. About $500K of that being pure profit. I don't know what the farmer's lease was, but it stands to reason that it wasn't anywhere near that. So this landowner had figured out a neat little trick. Let the farmer get a good crop planted, and then refuse to renew the lease. The farmer would leave the plants in the field, and the landowner would just need to pay some contractors to come harvest it, and they'd earn a profit. Since at the time, the farmer's lease wasn't yet up, he decided to prevent that from happening. His act of revenge against the owner was to prevent them from cashing in on their hard work. Sure, it destroyed his farm, and he had to sell off most everything he owned to buy some property for himself, but he'd proved a point. The owner did try to sue the farmer, though he, the owner, really didn't have a leg to stand on, or so I was told. I think the court ruled that since the farmer was still under the lease when he had the land tilled under, then it was his property to do with as he wished, and thus the landowner couldn't tell him what to do with his property. I learned a rather valuable lesson from that man, beyond what I learned about farming. That lesson was, never, ever cross someone with nothing to lose. Edit, since it was brought up in the comments, let me add some details here. Cotton is one of the few crops which leave a negative nutrient value in the soil. Meaning that after harvest, even if you till the dead plants under, or even if you till them prior to harvest, you won't have as much nutrients as you started with. That's why farmers will plant another crop, usually winter wheat, in place and then till it under rather than harvesting it. This is something commonly called a green manure, but it works to put nutrients that the cotton pulled out of the soil, back into it. While the ground wouldn't have been completely dead or sterile, any crop planted on that tract of land, without further treatment of the soil, wouldn't have produced the same acre per acre yield that a comparable crop would have had he gone to harvest, and planted the secondary crop. Which means that the landowner would either have to plant the green manure, and spend money that way, or pay by the ton to use artificial fertilizer.